whispers and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on Earth, and it's no wonder why, when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause. Welcome to The Probable Cause. This is a podcast covering legal and judicial matters in Allen County, Indiana, northeastern Indiana, and by extension, the state of Indiana. I'm Jamie Duffy, your host and a local journalist, and to my left is our co-host, Michael McAlexander. He is the Allen County prosecutor. By phone, we have my right hand, a mysterious, anonymous celebrity at this point, who's very savvy when it comes to the courts. First, I want to say congratulations to Mike, who was awarded the highest award you can receive from the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council, or IPAC, the John R. Owens Lifetime Achievement Award. The very same day he got that, which was last Thursday, as I recall, at the Grand Wayne Center, Mayor Sharon Tucker sent over a proclamation to the Grand Wayne Center, making it Michael McAlexander Day. So again, congratulations, Mike, and that is so nice. When you consider there's 92 prosecutors, because there's 92 counties in Indiana, and you got that award, and I think it was for a lot of work that you've done for Title 40.
Yes.
Okay. We've got that. So with us today is Judge Andrea Trevino. She is the judge of Allen Superior Court Number 7 and oversees family and juvenile matters. I think most of you listening or watching today are familiar with ACJC, which is the Allen County Juvenile Center, but we do have incarcerated juveniles and many who are on diversion programs, and we'll get into that. So I think she's in charge of all of that as the judge and the only judge of this particular jurisdiction. So first, we better get to court news. We had two major trials last week. Michael Allen was found guilty of child neglect resulting in death and battery resulting in death of the minor, both level 1 felonies. The victim was his 17-month-old daughter, Kevani. She was an adorable little girl. This was his second trial for the same crime. First trial ended in a hung jury. In Judge Zent's courtroom, 19-year-old Dante Williams was found not guilty of attempted murder, battery, and some other charges. And he and his mother got into a physical fight with her boyfriend. It didn't end well for the boyfriend. The jury agreed with the defense that Williams was defending his mother, self-defense, and it was necessary to protect her. So this week, Mike, you just informed me that there was a murder trial. So can you tell us anything about what's going on in the courts this week?
Well, we actually have two trials going, the murder trial, and there's also a child molesting trial. Right. So we're busy as usual.
I didn't even know that, or I would have tried to schedule something, but it's never too late. So now to the judge. She grew up here. She attended Southside High School. Your bio left out elementary and middle school. Do you want to give a shout out?
Sure. Weiser Park Elementary School and Memorial Park Middle School. So schooling through the Fort Wayne systems all along.
And I'm so glad to hear that, actually. She graduated from St. Joseph's College in Indiana. She received her law degree from Indiana University in Bloomington. After law school, she was a private attorney here in Fort Wayne. Please correct me if anything's not perfect. Took on family law, civil litigation, and appellate work. Just wondering, with the appellate work, did that mean that you helped individuals who were convicted of a crime and now are seeking an appeal?
So appellate work can mean anything that got appealed. So as an attorney, I did both civil and criminal work, and so it could have been that they just didn't like the result in a civil case as well and appealed it, which wouldn't implicate, criminal matters. But I also did work with criminal attorneys like Frank Gray and Travis Friend at Beckman Lawson, so we did also do criminal appellate work.
That is so interesting. That's worth a podcast in itself. So she also, in her spare time, I guess, has been a soccer coach for the Fort Wayne Sport Club, a cheerleading coach at Southside High School, and a soccer coach at Canterbury Middle School. So I'm just going to assume that you were a soccer player and a cheerleader.
I was.
Go
many
Archers.
moons ago.
All right. And you've been a guardian ad litem, and that's commonly known as a GAL, who represents children in custody and parenting time disputes. In 2013, she became a magistrate in the Allen Circuit Court, and she primarily oversaw the 4D division, which is the division that Mike's also been quite involved with, where they recuperate money for the custodial parent for the custodial parent from the non-custodial parent in order to raise their children. And then in 2018, she was appointed judge of the Allen Superior Court number 7 right here at ACJC by Governor Eric Holcomb. She presides over family and juvenile matters, oversees the Allen County Learning Academy, the Allen County Juvenile Probation Department, and the Allen County Juvenile Center, which is a secure detention facility. Then Governor Holcomb, he appointed you to the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute, where you were on the subcommittee for youth, drug, and crime, and the exoneration fund.
Yes.
So those are two completely different things.
They really are, but just really rewarding work, like on both ends. Obviously, the youth stuff ties into what I do here, but the exoneration fund was just really interesting work because you get packets and packets and piles of case files where, due to technology or other developments a long time, it's been really called into question whether somebody should have been incarcerated back then. And some of those cases were really clear, and the burden to prove that and get funds from the exoneration fund is really quite high. But there are cases where, because of the developments in, testing and lab work, where people were able to prove that they were not at the scene or at the crime. And many times for those exoneration fund cases, we would have the cooperation of the prosecutor and the other attorneys saying, listen, we did the best we could with what we had at the time, but given the new developments, like this person deserves some money, which is the best we can do right after the fact, to compensate them for their lost time.
So does the state have a cap on what you can pay people?
Yes.
What is that? Do you happen to remember?
I don't.
Not trying to put you on the spot here.
I don't happen to remember, but it's all statutory. There are caps for all of that, and so the people that apply know going in that their range is going to be something in between, 0 and what the cap allows, and the exoneration subcommittee, reviews, discusses, makes recommendations, and then obviously the CJI or Criminal Justice Institute larger board of trustees makes those final calls. But a really interesting subcommittee to be a part of and learn about. So yeah.
I'm reminded of that book I read last December that was by John Grisham and some other guy called Framed. I don't know if you have. I've got a copy if anybody wants to read it. And some of the cases often come from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. When you're right, the technology and the testing wasn't there, and these guys languished in prison forever. Okay.
There were also cases, though, that she had one of my cases that I was special prosecutor from St. Joe County on, that we tried 3 times, hung jury, guilty, overturned on appeal, hung jury, and he asked to be exonerated, and they chose not to exonerate him or pay him any money, which I thought was the right choice. In 3 trials with 4 alternate juries, it came out to 36-12 among the juries for guilt.
Which is something of a victory for a prosecutor, right?
Yes.
Even though it was a hung jury the last time, so that means he's free.
Yes. And
he wanted to be exonerated. Okay, I just have to check with these experts here. Where am I in this? Okay, so the Indiana Supreme Court named Judge Trevino to the Alternative Dispute Resolution. It goes on, but it was the Justice Oversight Committee for the Indiana General Assembly established this in 2022, which I also think is quite an honor. Locally, Judge Trevino is a member of the Allen County Community Corrections Board, which does touch a lot of people in this county. I've estimated it's 50,000 from the 10,000 who are in the system. And that means she's also on the Allen County Local JRAC Committee, and she is part of the Fort Wayne United Steering Committee, which the Fort Wayne United is that group that's trying to help kids on the ground. Community collaboration, I think this is just so interesting. When she was a magistrate, she started a partnership between the Allen Circuit Court and Work One of Northeast Indiana to provide employment, education, and vocational rehabilitation services to the parents who owned child support. And it was the first of its kind in the county. That's totally practical to me.
Well, thank you.
Get them to work so they can pay their money, right?
Yeah, we would actually have Work One like on site for our 4D hearings. And so they'd be in an office. And if I had a parent who would say, you know, like, I want to pay child support, but I haven't been able to get a job, or I don't know what my skills are, I don't know how to put a resume together, you know, we would get anything from valid reasons to invalid excuses as to,
Right.
as to why people don't pay child support, as you can imagine. But sometimes we do have those parents who are trying and just not able to scrape up the funds to pay the money. Those aren't the kind of people that we want to throw in jail, right? So we gave them a task. That task was go meet with Work One, sign up for some workshops, get your resume together, sharpen your skills up a little bit, and then Work One would also report to us at those subsequent hearings. So it just wasn't he said, she said coming from the parent. It was Work One also being able to say, yes, they followed through, right? They came to these workshops, they got their resume together, or they didn't follow through. And so we had sort of another layer of not following through with what.
So do you still have that program?
So I started that over in Circuit Court. It did not follow us over here. Part of the reason being,
But is it still over there?
I don't know if Circuit Court's still doing it. I believe at
hope
one point, Work One did sort of pull from having somebody at the courthouse so extensively. As you can imagine, like lots of departments, they started having staffing shortages. So to dedicate someone, you know, to the courts every week for those hearings became burdensome to them. I don't know if they're doing it in some capacity any longer.
I suppose COVID had an effect on that too.
I'm sure it did have an effect on that. But we do still have Work One as a resource to tell people this is a place you can go, this is a place that can help you. And so even the residual effects, I think, of that program have been helpful to deputy prosecutors and others who know of its existence, who know of what it can do, and can send people.
Kind of push people
Absolutely.
to take advantage.
Absolutely.
And then here at ACJC, she started the Career Exploration Academy, which is a training program for youth on probation, and it kind of introduces them to various trades for in-demand jobs in automotive, manufacturing, hospitality, and healthcare, which is another thing I think is extremely practical.
Yeah, that's been a big one for us and one I'm really, really excited about. I mean, as you can imagine, like anything that feels like a video game is like our kids want to key in like right away. And so this career exploration program starts with our kids in detention, our kids in probation who are able to use these VR headsets, which is pretty cool, to simulate real on-demand jobs. So whether that be in automotive, culinary, you know, anything like that. I have videos, I think of Mike Manuel from Fort Wayne Community Schools changing oil. So you see him with his VR headset on, right? And he's, you know, changing oil. And it's tracking your movements and tracking whether you're following the instructions, and then giving you scores. And if you hit certain marks and scores, you earn a certificate. That certificate is actually valid in certain career.
Do the kids like this?
Oh my gosh, they love it. They love it. So we use it in probation and other realms. We can use it, you know, whenever at the probation officer's discretion. In detention, it's also a great tool to use for an incentive. So because the kids love that away from the normal day, if they have good behavior, then the career exploration headset is something that we can use to say, hey, listen, you had no write-ups this week. Time to go to, you know, career exploration, put your headset on, and they're really excited to do that.
And then I suppose once they get out of here and maybe they feel more confident, they can go get a job, even if it's low level. It's a job, you know, and I think that gives them confidence. This program was one of the very first in the nation to focus on youth on probation and secure detention. And you were nominated for the Institute of Workforce Excellence's Innovative Program of the Year, which I honestly think you should have won it for that. But
well, we didn't win that. But this year, just a month or so ago, we did win the Indiana Detention program of the year. So we've got a big framed award for that same program. So give kudos to my director of detention, Greg Peters, who sort of have been the boots on the ground for that, and they won that award just a month or so ago at the Indiana Detention Conference.
Oh,
so
it's too bad
pretty
they
exciting.
didn't put it in here. Now, and one more thing before we get to talking about everything else that you can imagine. She's created the Bridges to Recovery program, which is a no cost, I really like that part about no cost, educational initiative designed to support youth and their families and connect youth to community resources while awaiting treatment. I'm just assuming that we're talking about substance abuse treatment, mental health, these kind of things.
Absolutely. We really started to see kids struggle in between hearings. Let's say they were sentenced, and we sentenced them to an intensive outpatient treatment program, right, because of their mental health issues or their substance abuse or a combination of the two, which we also see quite a lot. Well, that time to get into a provider can be from weeks to months.
That's just crazy.
And we would see kids back in that time, right? Because they didn't have that safety net. And I really struggled with the fact that, we're sending them to just kind of fend for themselves until the provider could get them in. And so
when you say you were just sending them off to fend for themselves, these kids are sentenced to like probation and then they go home. Is that what I'm envisioning here?
Correct. Sentenced to probation, and then sent home with parents with conditions to complete, one of which would be this outpatient treatment or some kind of, counseling. And they are at the mercy, right, of the providers and their busy schedules. So many of our providers in town, so this is not to knock them because they're so busy. They have so much need out there that they just can't get them in right away. And so I sat down and said, guys, we have to do something to put eyes on these kids, to stay connected to these kids, to reinforce and tell them their value, their worth, the dangers of what they're doing, so on and so forth. So Bridges to Recovery is primarily focused on our substance abuse kids, okay? And so
what percentage of those kids out of your total population do you think they are?
Well, what percentage of kids do I think?
Well, first of all, let's start with how many kids are you supervising here in the detention center and on probation? I don't know, 300, 400?
Yeah, on probation, it's going to be hundreds. In the detention center, that number fluctuates from day to day and week to week because we're a short-term detention center, okay? So we could pick up a kid on a Friday, he could screen to stay in until his first hearing, but then at his first hearing, 1 to 3 days later, he could be released on conditions.
Well, that's just like adult.
Just like adult. There's a lot of similarities between what we do and adult, although the terminology is wildly different.
There's no cash bail kind of thing.
No cash bail kind of thing. We don't charge parents for any of that. So it's literally just a hearing.
They do that in other states. So kudos to Indiana for that. I think they do it in California.
Well, I think it was over a decade ago we went to, when JDAI, and actually before JDAI came in, we went to more of an objective scoring system based on their past record, education, how they were doing things, to give us arguably an objective score as whether people should be detained or not. Now, the judges always retain the right to override that, and certainly did so on very dangerous situations.
Yeah, those overrides can go either way. So if we have a kid picked up but it's after hours, they are screened for those releases, similar to what they do in adult. But if we're not running court, then that scoring system is going to guide the probation officer who's downstairs looking at to say, okay, do they score to be released with no conditions? Do they score to be released with conditions? We have curfew checks, which basically means kids can be out of the home during the day, but have to be in home by between the hours.
So does this mean they're on an ankle monitor?
So curfew checks is our lowest level of conditional release. That's going to mean you don't have to have an anklet, you don't have to be confined to your home, but you do have to be in your home from the hours of 8 p.m. till I think it's 5 or 6 a.m. You have to be in your home.
But how do you know that they're there?
So we are a 24/7 operation here, and so we have what's called a detention alternative program probation team who works third shift, second shift, they are here at all times. They're receiving those calls. They're receiving the intakes from law enforcement when they drop them off after hours. And they are monitoring the kids, like you mentioned, who are on GPS, anklet units. If they see deviations from where they're supposed to be, they're going to, go out to their home. They're going to make random stops here and there to stop in, make sure kids are there at their curfews or, pursuant to their home detention conditions. So our team is always here, always working, always monitoring 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Do you have any on-site counselors who could talk to them?
We do. So what I love, I think, about our center is that we really provide a great network of support for kids. So we have a licensed psychologist. We have a team of mental health counselors.
Now, how many of those do you have?
One licensed psychologist.
Right.
And then I believe we have a team of 1, 2, 3, 4. If my count is correct, it fluctuates in between 3 and 5 depending on the job structure. But we have, again, folks who are performing mental health and substance abuse assessments. Our doctor, Dr. Kraus, can perform psychological assessments, which is great resource for the courts and for even DCS when we're talking about residential treatment options or things like that. All that can be done right here. But we're running group for drug and alcohol. We're running group for thinking errors. We're running groups, with kids just about, their needs and wants. And
well, let me ask you this. You have 3 to 5 counselors who can sit there and talk to the kids and assess and everything. How many could you really use?
Oh gosh, yeah. If I could have one-on-one, that would be ideal.
That's why I was asking, how many kids are we talking about? Because I think a lot of us out there, we have no idea about. We can only guess what the operations are here in this building. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So in secure detention, if I can just back it up a little bit to what it used to be, like Mike was alluding to before JDAI, you would hear the story similar to what you hear in the jail, that we would have kids, double, triple room, kids sleeping on floors. I don't know. This is before well before my time, but stories go.
Well, some of them aren't stories. This facility for girls, because the Saul Wood Center was on this same property, but what they had for detention for girls was a semi-trailer that had been air conditioned.
A semi-trailer.
Mm-hmm. It was our animal shelter. The old one was in better shape than this
More
building
humane,
was.
I guess. It's like there aren't any windows on a semi-trailer.
Yeah.
No, it was horrible.
Oh, gosh. When was this building built? Do you have any idea?
2003, roughly.
Jeez, it's just like only 22 years that... All right, well, we've come a long way, and that's a good thing. That's a positive. So,
and even when this building was built in its first years, we were well above 100 in terms of the number of kids that we were detaining on a regular basis in the detention center. And about 2013-ish, under Judge Heath's leadership here,
that's Dan Heath.
Correct.
He's a roving guitarist now.
He kind of prescribed the JDI philosophy here in this building, started the steering committee and really kind of retrained probation in terms of, prioritizing and reprioritizing how we were analyzing both detention and alternatives to detention. And we amped that up and really started using screening tools and saying, sort of like the bond project, sort of like the, everything else going on in adult court, pretrial release, how do we better analyze and give folks a chance to respond to community supervision as opposed to just detaining or locking up.
A pretrial release, you're saying, it all sounds good, but then you don't know what these kids are going back to.
Oh.
Right. We had gone to a more objective system a couple of years before the JDAI, but that was a national initiative.
You just want to say what JDAI is, because our folks aren't going to know.
Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative, I believe.
Thank you. Now you can say
I forget the national foundation that kind
JDAI, we got it.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
But before that, we'd gone to the objective as opposed to the subjectivity of a judicial officer either knowing the kid from before or just kind of eyeballing them and saying that's a bad kid. There was a lot of speculation that we weren't being fair from a racial justice standpoint. Although I think when we changed to the other system, one of the issues that JDA initiative wanted to see if whether there would be a reduction in the relative proportion of minorities being detained. And it turned out the percentages stayed pretty consistently the same, but it did reduce the number of all kids that were being detained.
It's like at the jail, when I look at the numbers, it's about half black, half white. Although the numbers for, I would say, the Asian have been rising. You know, with the population rising, it makes sense, right? So where were we? Okay, so yeah, some of these kids are going back to situations that aren't all that good with the pretrial release. So if, you know, would it be a benefit to keep them here if you know they're going back to a horrible situation?
So that's part of the objective.
That's the argument that the prosecutor frequently makes.
Okay.
I mean, it's definitely, we have now expanded our objective admissions criteria and what we use in our screening tools, basically to be able to consider things like that. If I'm being honest with you, I mean, we have to detain kids more so because they are qualified for release under our screening, but their parents refuse to take them home. Most of our overrides to either the Youth Services Center or to detention are because a parent refuses to take the child home due to either safety concerns in their own home. They may know more than we know, right, based upon the offense or what was written up in the police report. They might know more, you know, of what's going on. And sometimes it's just they're overwhelmed.
They're at their wit's end. They don't know what to do.
And
actually, I know a father like that right now. So, all right, so this has been a great conversation so far. I've got like a list of questions that I know no gotcha questions for a judge. We don't do that here. Sadly,
Darn,
with all of this happening,
Mike might have some.
He's your protector. You know how we crazy journalists are. We're going to lose Judge Trevino. And she made an announcement, I want to say it was about a month ago on Facebook, and I read it and I thought, we've got to get her on the probable cause. And so, first of all, I want to ask you, I want to ask you first, how do you feel about stepping down? It must be difficult.
Oh, 100%. There's for sure 100% difficult aspects of it. Bittersweet across the board because I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. I've been dedicated to what I do. And I love the people here. My team and the people that I get to work with are top notch and never felt like part of such like sort of a large collection of people like really, I believe, striving for the same goal, right? And that is like healthier and stronger families, kids, you know, and futures, really. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
It's kind of like being a teacher. You just can't, because I've been a teacher before. They just start to become your kids.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel that way, and sometimes I preach and I lecture like a parent in court, which I think our role as juvenile judges is a little bit different than when you're talking to adults. I mean, we do have to look them in the face and say, you know, like, wake up, come on. Like, I don't like to see you in that suit, and I don't want to see you in that suit over at the big house, right, or the big courthouse.
The big house, yeah.
Everything we do here is in hopes that they don't catch that adult criminal case. I mean, that's what it boils down to, because kids will be silly. They'll be knuckleheads sometimes. They don't always use their brain. Their brain's not fully developed, and so they don't always say, if I do this, then that, right? I'm going to get in trouble. Like
they're not logical.
They're not logical always.
I wasn't logical when I was 16. I mean, I wasn't like that, okay? Right. But yeah.
Yeah, they don't, they're impulsive, you know, and they don't, like I said, they don't think about the consequence when they do the act always. They don't always say, like, if I do this, I'm going to go to jail, or I'm going to be waived to adult court, or I'm going to catch a charge. They do it because that's the anger or the feeling or the impulse they're feeling in that moment, right?
Right, and they, my right hand, you haven't said a dang thing. So what do you think you're going to miss the most?
The feel good when you get those like good stories, when you see the change, when you see the improvement, when you see a kid who struggled with that substance abuse and resulting, come back and just when they are clean, they just look different. They got a shine about them. I mean, you see it probably in the JCAP stuff and everything else. It's just like they look like healthy, glowing versions of their prior self, right? And so to have them come back sometimes and be like, thank you, or to have their parents say thank you.
Now, how old are they typically when they say thank you?
Oh, Jamie, I wish I could.
It's like raising your own kids when they're 30, maybe.
They finally realize, hey, Mom wasn't. Yeah.
I mean, that brings up a good point because there was a time, where we could say the majority of our kids are, 16, 17 years old. But the sad part about that story, Jamie, is that we're seeing them younger and younger and younger. I am getting kids dropped off who have been arrested who are 10 years old, who are 11 years old, who are 12 years old. 13.
What are they typically doing to get arrested?
You name it. I mean, like I've got kids as young as 10, 11, 12 stealing cars, driving them like they're in a video game, taking police on high-speed chases. I've got kids that young carrying guns. The possession of gun charges is higher than it's ever been, and it is higher every year, I think, since I've been here, because kids are able to go to a printer and print. I mean, like, and if you'd tell me that possession of a machine gun in kids would be on the rise like it is, I would never have believed you, but they can print off these things on 3D printers and turn guns.
And that's what they're doing. You are seeing this.
Oh, we know that there are some kids who went down to the public library and printed things for guns. So.
I've been in that room, the maker room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And okay, we got to talk to the library about that.
They're very savvy, and if they could use their good power, their bad powers for good, gosh, think about what we'd have on our hands, right? If they can create, come up with that and create that kind of stuff.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've got some figures here because I can't live without statistics. It says most confined youth are held for non-person offenses. I don't know if that's the case here. 1 in 4. Now, this is a prison policy initiative, and they are kind of, leaning toward de-incarceration. Let's just put it that way. We have 35,000 confined youth in the United States, and 3,000 of them are on technical violations, 13,000 person offenses. Now, that includes assault, drug trafficking, homicide, of which there are about 1,700 overall in the United States. What about we have people who are committing homicides who are 14 and 15 here. Do they stay here or are they at jail?
So they are staying here now. The law changed a while back now. It's been since I've been here in 2018, but it was shortly thereafter where they passed the JJRC, was it? I forget. There's so many acronyms.
Separation, There's
so many acronyms in juvenile that I can't remember what the name of that one was offhand. But basically what it said is whenever possible and unless and until the criminal judges make specific findings that kids under 18 will be held here even when they're waived to adult court. So even the kids who have committed those most heinous crimes, right, they have been waived to adult court and they're facing justice over in the adult system. They are held here with other juveniles and they're programmed like juveniles. So they're going to school or they're doing their, high school equivalency courses. They're being programmed here in our building just like a regular, 14, 15,
So
16.
they're not kept separate?
They're not.
Wow.
Well, kept separate here, away out of the jail.
Right, but are they kept separate from the other kids who are in here for perhaps?
No, unless they have behavioral
burglary, auto theft, weapons. Are they kept away, drug trafficking? Are they kept away from kids who maybe they don't have the extreme serious charge of murder?
They're not.
That's interesting.
If I'm being honest, not all, but many of the kids who escalate to that type of offense we have seen them before here. We are familiar with them here. And so our staff is familiar with them, and they are familiar with our staff. And so they really just settle into sort of the same routine that they've known before. We keep an eye on them. The good news about our center is because of state and federal regulations, like we have to have very tight ratios. So a kid is never in a large group of youth without several adults. In fact, depending on the rules that you're going by, 1 to 7 or 1 to 8 is the most, right, that you could have kids to a staff, and we don't even really ever allow it to be that. I mean, we have multiple staff, and sometimes if you have a kid who has a behavioral problem that needs to be escorted somewhere, I mean, it's one-on-one, right? So we have to sort of just accommodate and roll with.
Do they have
those.
like a day room and then they go to cells, just like the adult prison?
They have a school. So in secure detention, they have their own school. So they're going to school. They have their own day rooms. They have an indoor and outdoor rec center.
Do they actually get to go outside?
So there is an outdoor area. They don't use it that much. I mean, you'd think that they'd want to, but they really don't use it that much. They like to play basketball. They like to do laps. They use the weight room on occasion, but they don't do a lot of going outside, which is probably indicative of normal teens who don't go outside as much anymore.
It would drive me crazy not to be able to go out and just breathe fresh air at least once a day.
Yeah.
So that's I don't understand that. Here's another really interesting thing that I found out, and I'm not going to bore you with any more, but it says almost half of youth in foster care have an encounter with the criminal legal system by age 17.
Sounds
I'm just
accurate.
wondering how many kids you see, just your own estimation, because you know it so well and you've been here since 2018, which is going on a decade. How many kids have been in foster care here? How many foster parents are you dealing with in ACJC?
I mean, I don't have like exact numbers that I could tell you, but it is, as Mike just indicated, like that's not uncommon. I mean, we get a lot of kids who are both in foster care or have some level of DCS involvement in their own family, even if they're still at home. Judge Pratt, a couple years back, sort of invited that, or forced that discussion rather, but it's a good force, of dual status assessment, where any kids who are involved in both the systems, so Judge Morgan right now does all the DCS cases, the CHINS cases, but if we have kids and families...
But are those part of your jurisdiction too then?
They're not.
You don't?
No.
You don't touch any of that?
I don't touch any of that, but we do have those dual status cases, which is exactly what you just alluded to. Kids who are involved in the child welfare system and also have problems in the delinquency, system. So a lot of times when you have that familial discord or parents who are unavailable due to incarceration or otherwise, or facing termination of their parental rights because they're unfit parents, you do see kids act out. You absolutely do see kids act out. And, kids are in foster care, same thing. They're angry, they're upset, they feel abandoned, they feel betrayed, all those things, let down by the system perhaps. Anything that a kid could probably feel when you are taken from your parents or your parents become unavailable by virtue of their own behaviors or because of what a court decides, you're going to have feelings about that.
Absolutely.
I think that's part of the reason the legislature is doing this pilot project where 8 county prosecutors are going to be given the responsibility to do the DCS legal work in CHINS cases.
Have we heard the final word on that yet, or?
Well, we did have a meeting Monday with some of the DCS, the General Counsel's office, along with IPAC and 3 of the 4 prosecutors' offices in northern Indiana that would be impacted by this. So we still have a long way to go and a lot of questions to answer. But I think part of the legislative intent behind it is not only to kind of move the cases along a little faster, but get to permanency or stabilization quicker and cut out some of this inconsistent bureaucracy between DCS and kind of the juvenile detention system.
It is. It's so confusing for the parents out there. The ones who contact me, it's like, what do I do? I don't know.
Well, and it's really hard for us to figure out what is the best place for those dual status kids. Are they, do we put them kind of on the criminal track? And I mean, the juvenile system is very much into rehabilitation, but it does have a punishment aspect to it if you send somebody to the Department of Corrections or keeping them in secure detention here. Where the DCS and the foster care program don't have that. But so there's always that kind of subjectiveness in determining what's the best way to go on this stuff. But I think they're looking for a little more consistency and uniformity if you have the prosecutor, and maybe it would have a model where DCS lawyers made the same kind of decision. But we've had some horrific stories, I mean, just sad stories.
Horrible. I mean, they're just terrible.
I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I mean, several years ago, we had a 9-year-old girl who stabbed mom's new boyfriend because mom's old boyfriend molested her.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't allow that, but yet, how much or do you want to punish?
So
You
she
wanna
was
give
afraid of
kid-
this new boyfriend coming into the scene, is what you're trying to say. And so I mean, and then where do you put that child if there's, I mean, grandmothers, I'm sure, come in very handy, right?
We do have a lot of third-party custodians and family members who step up for kids whose parents are otherwise unavailable. I mean, it's sad to say, but we do have a fair amount of kids, probably larger than general population would know, being raised by, adult sisters, aunts, grandmas, grandpas, sometimes family friends, just people who care about these kids, willing to step in and sacrifice.
So do you have to vet those people, though?
Oh, absolutely.
So is it up to you, or is it up to DCS, or is it up to, I don't know.
It's a combination of everything. So it is in our discretion, but we always do the DCS background check. So that's going to include your fingerprints. It's going to include, looking into their criminal history. It's going to look whether they have any substantiated DCS cases and things of that nature. Once they meet that threshold, right, that's the minimum threshold. If you don't meet those, if you fail on any of those grounds, you're not going to be considered by the court. If you qualify through all those, then it would be at court discretion whether this is an appropriate place.
So, and how long would that typically take? Meanwhile, the kid.
They're pretty quick. I mean, we've had them come back in a matter of days, which is great for us because sometimes we don't want kids sitting back in detention or out at youth services center if we've got a family member and they otherwise qualified to be released.
So you just brought up something else, Youth Services Center. What is that?
So that is our shelter care facility run by Chris Dunn out on Lima Road. That is utilized for DCS cases for kids that don't have foster care yet, who don't have homes or placement, who have been maybe temporarily removed from their homes. We use it also for kids who screen to be released, but their parents don't want them home. We can send them to shelter care in lieu of secure detention, right? If they don't meet those criteria to be held in secure detention.
Status offenses.
Yeah, status offenses, and also just any sort of, nonviolent, low-level offenses that would otherwise have qualified to go home on a conditional.
Is the age range like 9 to 17?
Yeah, and they'll take smaller kids, unlike us. So they do have smaller DCS, kids from DCS cases that are younger than that, whereas we don't, right? Like to have.
Well, do you ever have like 5-year-olds arrested?
No, we've arrested, perhaps.
Or brought here by the cops.
Yes, arrested and brought here pretty young, but stay here, absolutely not.
No.
Youngest is probably going to be between the 10 and 12, and even that is in the rare variety. And the statute's now been revised where if under 12, we have to make it has to be judicial, like override, and we have to make very specific findings to do that. So,
Do you ever like siblings arrive here
yes,
with the police?
yes.
Oh yeah, almost any setup you can imagine, we've seen one form or another, and we haven't pointed out that in all the juvenile detention cases or delinquency cases, you always want a parent or guardian there, and that can be a struggle sometimes. I mean, from the investigation side, before we interview a juvenile, they have to have a meaningful consultation with a guardian or their parent. And sometimes that gets tricky because every so often they're in cahoots with each other to do criminal acts. You see some, it's not exactly a 50s sitcom around
I can
here.
remember when Judge Davis told me once that she had a young man who'd been introduced to drugs when he was like 11 years old. And I think that happens more often than people know. Well, you know, if you were to interview that dad, it would be what you're talking about right there. So, yeah, go ahead.
Trevino, you mentioned that white youth work. The youth services center is for one of the things you mentioned is where the parents won't let them come home.
Correct.
Do the parents get charged with like neglect or abandonment or something like that when that happens?
So we do have the discretion to basically, that would be a release to parents. We would actually technically release them to parents. And then if parents did not pick them up within a window, we would call DCS to report that as an abandonment. There are some situations where in our discretion, we're going to allow the child to be screened and override it to Youth Services Center when a parent refuses. For instance, if I have a low-level battery in the home that would have been screened to be released, but this parent says, you know, hey, I was the victim or the sibling was the victim and our house is feeling a little bit traumatized right now and we maybe need to settle things down, then we may, in a supervisor's capacity, override to Youth Services Center just to give that family, you know, a cooling off period for the day to 3 days before they have that, you know, first hearing with us. And I say 3 days, that really only happens if somebody gets picked up on a Friday afternoon because we're running court through noon on Fridays and then right back on Monday mornings. So that kid isn't going to sit there long, but absolutely if we feel this is, you know, unjustified and there are no good basis for a parent refusing, then we can show a technical release by court order to the parent and then call DCS when they don't pick them up. Again, we try to be sensitive, especially in those like battery situations when we've got victims, that even if it's a low level, if it's in home and they're expressing concern, then we'll sometimes hold off on calling DCS and just give this family a cooling off period. And by and large, there are many times where by that second or third day, things are calmed down, you know, apologies have been given and the family's ready to, you know, be back together.
This sounds like a 7-day-a-week job. I mean, you're the only judge in Allen Superior Court number 7, which means that you have to sign off on all this stuff.
So I have 2 magistrates, luckily 2 great magistrates, I will add.
And what are their names?
So Carolyn Foley
Okay.
and Dan Pappas are my 2 magistrates out here. They've both put in more years than I in the sort of realm. I mean, Foley has been on the juvenile probation side of things. She has been a referee over here for Sims. She has been at the prosecutor's office and back here with me. So she's kind of seen all the different views and aspects. Dan also did prosecutorial work, defense work, family law work before coming over here for magistrate back with Judge Heath as well. So they have, you know, just a lot of experience, a lot of good perspective and viewpoints. And I'm really lucky to have their help because, as you said, it's a lot, and our case numbers are not going down. I mean,
I was going to say that's what I was trying to do is get to some numbers here.
Yeah.
Also, do you take kids from outside the county?
We do.
So, what other counties are you the feeding school for?
So,
put it another way.
It can be from wherever. We've had counties in way southern Indiana want to use us. We are very coveted and desired placement spot because we're clean, safe, and we offer a lot of programming and services. But also, it's expensive. So for out-of-county kids, we just raised the rate, and we're talking about charging $200 a day. So for counties, to place them here, smaller counties sometimes struggle with whether that's in their budget. I've been told by a colleague in Blackford County that their entire annual budget for detention is like $5,000. Well, you can imagine. I mean, that gets burned up with one serious.
Is that the one that just
detained
lost
kid.
their judge?
I think
Blackford?
They might have lost one.
I think they lost a judge down there.
I know they were in the discussion, but
I think you're right.
yeah. So you talk about budget issues that go along with that, and sometimes we have like co-defenders, so they might use a local facility for one of the kids, but they want to send the other one somewhere more far away, so they're not in the same area or able to talk, collude, whatever, or conspire, fight, who knows what. So they want to separate them and have them in different counties, but absolutely we accept, and that goes into our county coffers, which is a nice help for us here.
But then what does it cost you a day? I mean, I'm not saying you could put a price on a kid's head, but I know Sheriff Hirschberger will tell you, he'll moan about how he only gets $35 a day, from the state, unless the federal prisoners paid more and then he lost them. So, I mean, $200 a day does sound decent until you start realizing what goes into taking care of these kids. And
Well, look at all the services they're providing. I mean, the educational services, the psychological services, the mental health services.
And the security.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a lot of security here. So, and you absolutely have to have that when you have kids who are dangerous. I guess another thing I wanted to ask Judge Trevino was, do you depend on volunteers? I know a woman who is with Bring It, Push It, Own It, and they appreciate the opportunity to come in and help these kids.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes a village, and I've been really open to diversifying like the type of programming that we do here, bring in here, consider here. Why? Because you never know what's gonna really, get to that one kid, because it might be something with music, it might be something with dance, it might be something with writing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Bring It's been a great program for our girls on the girls' side for their empowerment, their mental health, their movement, all of that. And the girls there that come over for that have done a wonderful job with that program. I mean, Youth for Christ is out here. Brian Walker does a chess club out here. We have PFW out here with the music therapy. And again, we use that as an incentive. So we have kids who, if they don't have write-ups and they're doing well, can be part of our music therapy group. They actually create entire songs, like music, lyrics, everything. And they were able to create their own name. They call themselves Brothers in Harmony. And so,
can you send us the clip? We'll get it. We'll get it up there, right?
Absolutely.
And then there was one mom, and she said, as long as he's got my son out there, and they're knitting hats for the elderly.
So, as part of our MRT, that's moral recognition therapy, we do give them looms and we allow them to knit. It's very relaxing for them. And ironically, you see the most violent, vicious of offenders learning to calm themselves through this very unconventional way, right, of knitting. And we let them leave with looms if they want to. But
and they're not dangerous. There's no needles or anything.
They're all like plastic things, and a lot of it's finger looping. But we commit to a cause, whether that be for homeless, whether that be for stillborn babies. They're doing cocoons, and we tell them what they're doing that for, and then they start to connect with that too, and they feel like they're doing good, right? They're helping.
You've touched that human chord in there that, because of their life circumstances, has been destroyed.
Yeah.
I think it's just really neat. I think we could go on and on, but actually, because I know we're running out of time. So we're losing Judge Trevino, but we haven't given her an opportunity to tell us what she's going to be doing.
Oh gosh, that's really boring compared to what we just talked about. And I'm excited about it, but it sounds boring because, you can probably, hopefully feel my excitement anytime I talk about this stuff, or even have conversations with folks in the community or prosecutors or probation officers. I get really excited about the things we're doing that people probably don't understand the courts are doing. They think we're just here to, Mike calls it punishment. We like to call it accountability. So if they have to stay here, they're being accountable for the things they've done in our community. But we want them to leave better. We want them to see that adults believe in them, that we want them to do better, that we're not just here to wag our fingers, that we're here to, put them on a better path. And I really do feel that way, even when I have to hand down like the harshest of accountability dispositions. I feel like it's because this kid needs a timeout. Right? They're being like, they've got bad influences and doing bad things in our community, and they've got to have a timeout for them, for our community, for everybody involved. But I am going to be general counsel for a family business. It's my husband's business. So I took this job back in 2018, fully intending on living out my days and years here, right? And then a few years back, I met a man who became my husband.
All right, let's stop right there. Was it love at first sight?
I don't know. Probably not.
He wooed you.
Eventually, absolutely yes.
Nice.
Absolutely yes.
Very nice.
But I'm like a logic brain person. So
I'm sure the girls here want to hear all the details.
So, wow. Well, this took a turn. So I met the man that I'm married to now. He lives in Wells County. I live in Allen County.
Right.
He has a business in Wells County. He's also an elected official in Wells County. And so that has created, some like dual status living situations where I'm here, he's there. We both have our homes. We pack bags and go to each other's homes for visits. That's become chaotic. My kids are very involved in school and sports, and so their lives are already chaotic. And so we're trying to just sort of lessen the chaos and create a long-term plan for our family, which will likely involve me being in Wells County once my boys are both graduated. But the company is called Clean Fuels National. It's an environmental company. By and large, what they do is if there are contaminations into gas tanks, like at your local pilot centers or travel centers, these guys are going to be coming in trying to diagnose what the problem is, clean out the fuel tanks, get those gas stations up and running, because as you can imagine, people need to travel.
I used to write about this in New Jersey. There's a word for that when you resolve those things, but it's
natural disasters. Anything that kind of can create disruptions in the fuel industry because of their tanks. Clean Fuels can come, and diagnose. So, but
those tanks can leak into the.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's really bad. So that is quite a company.
So I'll be working with local attorneys, though. I mean, for the parts that obviously I'm not up to speed in doing, because there's going to be a learning curve for me coming from this area to that. Happy to continue my involvement and relationships with local attorneys and firms to manage that work until I'm up to speed. And even when I'm up to speed, things that are out of my wheelhouse to utilize our local community for that kind of stuff.
Well, if you want a part-time job, I'm always looking for attorneys.
So there was just one last question. I know I'm going on and on. We do have an attorney shortage in the state, and it really gets me that I can't get IU up here to open up a new law school. And here's Purdue. They've got their global law school. But anyway, what would you tell people young and old who want to make a career of law? I mean, have you ever counseled anybody on that, or is it even important?
Oh,
what made you want to be an attorney?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and I think probably one of the greatest things about being an attorney is it doesn't have to be what you see on TV. You don't have to be this aggressive like litigator. It's so diverse what you can do in the law field. If you want to be a corporate attorney, if you want to advise a non-for-profit, if you want to be a general counsel for a company, you don't have to be that fierce, go for the throat, attorney, which I think is some people's perception is just like, oh, that's an ugly field. People that do that are of this certain, personality, and they like conflict and whatever else. And there's a lot of attorneys out there trying to resolve things peacefully, trying to resolve things for the collective good. There are, private counsel for people who have just a client that they're working for. There are attorneys who work for, like I said, businesses, non-for-profits, boards, things like that. So that it's so diverse in what you can do that if you have a shy personality, a diligent personality, if you like data, if you like numbers, if you like patents, sorry, you know what I mean? I mean, like people who are litigators in the
Think of that.
courtroom.
I think I have one. But no,
Yeah,
just kidding.
Yeah, if you like that, if you like the litigation, then you probably don't like, the business, the tax law and the patent law and the things like that. But if you like that, that booky stuff, there's a place for just about anybody in law.
Is law school hard? Because we hear law school. I do have a brother who's an attorney, but is law school really, really hard?
Depends where you go.
Oh, okay.
There are aspects of law that I think is very complex, very intellectually challenging. There's other parts that I think prosecutors and judges, especially in juvenile, it's very human services oriented.
Absolutely.
You're dealing with folks. You're trying to make your community better. But it does have an intellectual challenge as well. And it's not easy to get through law school. And it's not easy to practice law. I think we can both say that not all lawyers are created equal. But there are so many things you can do with a law degree. And it really can be a very rewarding, and it's rewarding in your personal life too, because frequently people that are law school graduates are also asked to be leaders with not-for-profits or volunteer boards and stuff. And you do bring some education and knowledge that's a little business and a little law.
And you know how to research things that are legal if you don't know, right?
So never regretted going to law school.
Yeah. But difficult, absolutely. I mean, it's no walk in the park.
No.
You have to take a test to get into law school, then you have to take law school, and then you have to take, your bar exam after law school. And so that's where probably, some people get filtered out is with the bar exam, because that's no easy feat either. It takes a lot of studying, and so yeah.
And a lot of stress. I know my son went through it. All right, so anybody want the last word? Because I think this has just been a great discussion, but sadly, we have to bring it to a close.
I learned a lot. It's no secret that both of my boys had interaction with the juvenile justice system, and we had to navigate our way through all of that stuff. But it was so interesting to learn how things work behind the scenes.
Yeah, it was for me too. I've wondered. I was so glad when she said she'd come on.
Well, I'll say that we're all going to miss Judge Trevino. She's been a very pleasant and cooperative person to work with on the different boards. We're on the Community Corrections JRAC board together.
Right.
And over the years, she's just been really nice to work with.
Energetic and passionate about it.
And certainly hopeful that your successor carries out the same kind of attitude. And I think that will probably happen.
Thank you.
But we will miss you.
Well, thank you.
Aww.
I know. I said it. It's the people, right, that I'll miss the most. The people in the circle, like working towards common goals.
Yeah.
It's been really amazing part of my journey.
Right. Well, we're going to miss her. So this has been The Probable Cause. You can find us on YouTube at www.theprobablecause.com. We are also on Facebook, The Probable Cause, and you can listen to us on Spotify or Apple. So for now, goodbye. This episode is filmed and edited by Frosty Pictures. The Probable Cause is produced by Maumee Media.
Worried when I crossed the Michigan line, a cop from Steuben County waiting on I-69. A headlamp went out while he pulled me over. Charged me with possession after I rolled down the window.
Now that's skunk.
Indiana's a trip when it comes to weed. It's like who doesn't smoke or use gummies? Your grandpa, your brother, your rich friend from school? Hell, throw in the whole courthouse and my attorney too. It's time those assholes change these stupid laws. It ain't worth the paper for a probable cause. Sitting on a bar stool in my usual place, this guy next to me said he was looking for some cocaine. Hell, I just sold him an 8-ball with a little piece off for me. But my buyer was a cop? Should have known he was a creep. So I'm a dealer, right? You gotta be kidding. It's a rich man's drug. I just take it because I'm injured. 8 years in Westville with a monkey on my back. There's more drugs in here than you can shake a shank at. One dirty drug test, man, this system's flawed. Undercover screwed me in my probable cause. 3 crimes never did me no favors. I'm hooked on Fetty. I'm a junkie, not a felon. Told that son of a bitch on the way to lockup. I can't seem to shake it. I need help, not mocking. What do you want from someone who's been through the system? Drugs all through the house before mom and dad went to prison. Throw me in jail and give me a fine? Someday I'll be dead and away from your kind. Now I'm at the courthouse in front of a judge. Can't say my public defender cares for me much. Crimes are committed on both sides of the law. God help me now with this probable cause. C-shift never gets old. Anything can happen when you're out on patrol. You think I'm just eating donuts, man? Give me a break. Nothing on this job is a piece of cake. Lights and sirens activated. This knucklehead wants to chase. Baby mama at the scene just spit in my face. Wife's worried that someday I won't be pulling up at all. You'll read about my killer in a probable cause. Man. She went through my phone and she seen my text. I told her forget it. It was just my ex. She took a swing and knocked me flat. Man, I went wild to get her back. Judge slapped me with a no contact order. Now she's got the kids and she's staying with her mother. So she started it all and I have to take the fall. You can read my whole story in the probable when I was young. Caught a case for dealing and did my time. Yeah, I got a record, but I was doing fine. Running my own business on the southeast side. Yeah, I got a gun. I kept it on hand. Told the cop my reason, thought he'd understand. In this neighborhood, you need some protection. Attorney thought I could get just community corrections, but the judge decided to send me to prison. Can't get ahead no matter how hard I try. Read the probable cause, it'll make you cry.
Whispers and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on earth, and it's no wonder why, when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause.